Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere cold. No, like really cold. Cold enough to crack the walls. Cold enough to freeze a man's breath before it leaves his mouth. Cold enough to turn Europe into a continent-wide freezer, whether you were a farmer, a baker, or just someone trying to make it through the night under 5 layers of blankets. You wake up in your little upstairs room, wooden shutters shut tight, socks on your hands instead of your feet. And still, the chill has crept in. But something's different this morning. Something wrong. You sit up, breath fogging in front of your nose. You glance at the window, and you can't see a thing. Not because it's still night. No, the sun's up somewhere out there. But the inside of your window is coated in a thick white layer of frost. A full inch, maybe more. Swirls of ice feather out like silver ferns from every corner. You reach out and touch it. It doesn't melt under your fingers. In fact, your fingertip sticks to it. You won't believe this, but that's not even the strangest part. When you pull your hand back and shake off the sting, you hear a creak. Not from the floorboards or the ceiling, but from the walls themselves. The timber has frozen so hard it's shrinking, groaning softly like an old man trying to move in his sleep. All right, before you get too cozy, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe, but only if your heart says yes. And if you're listening from a cold place right now, let me know where you are and what time it is in the comments. We're all curled up in this frostbitten story together. Dim the lights, get that fan going for some background vibes, and let's chill into tonight's little adventure. You wrap the blanket tighter and tiptoe out of bed. The floor is like ice. You think of the stones outside, the cobbles in the street, and wonder if they've cracked. You think of the neighbour's cat who sometimes sits on your windowsill, and then you remember you haven't heard that cat in days. Downstairs, the kitchen is even worse. Your breath comes out in long white ribbons. The little pot of water you left overnight, frozen solid. You try to tap the edge and the whole thing cracks, like hitting glass. You step back, listening. Nothing. No birds. No wheels on the street, just the eerie silence of a world frozen mid-breath. The door creaks open with effort. Even the hinges don't want to move in this weather. Outside, the world is a painting of stillness. Chimneys puff smoke that hangs in the air like silk. The trees look like they've been dipped in glass. A cartwheel leans against the wall, so cold the iron band around it has split clean in two. There's someone down the lane with a broom, trying to sweep snow that's packed so hard it might as well be stone. Another figure stands beside their well, frowning, because the rope won't budge, and the bucket stuck halfway down, frozen to the wall. It's not just your house. Then, it's not just your town. It's everywhere. And still, no one says a word. The silence of the cold is a kind of hush that wraps around your bones. No dogs barking, no children yelling, no laughter from the baker's shop, just your own footsteps crunching down the lane where even your shadow looks stiff and shivering. You follow your own footprints back toward the door but stop short at the woodpile. There's less there than you remember, just a few chopped stumps, some of them too thick to catch quickly. You pick one up, feel how heavy and damp it is, like it's sweating ice from the inside. Even the axe leans tiredly against the wall, its metal edge dulled by the freeze. You tug at a few logs and bring them in, placing them carefully beside the hearth. You try to start a fire anyway, even though you know it won't work. Not yet. Flint. Steel. A scrap of cloth. A whisper of smoke. But no flames. The air in the chimney is so cold it sucks the heat right out of the spark. You sit back on your heels and listen again. That same sound, the groaning of the walls. Somewhere a slate tile slides off a rooftop and crashes into the snow with a muffled thud. Somewhere else, a door slams in a house you can't see. You make tea. Well, not really. You boil a bit of snow in a dented pot just to hear it hiss. It never gets hot enough to steam properly. You drink it anyway. It tastes like melted stone and old iron. Someone knocks at your door, that's rare. You open it just enough to peek out. It's the boy from the workshop down the road. His nose is red, his scarf pulled high. He doesn't speak at first. He just holds out a cracked wooden tray with 3 frozen eggs. You swap him for 2 onions and half a crust of bread. No money, just trade. You both nod. That's it. You don't ask how his mother's doing. You don't ask if the forge is still open. You just close the door gently, because slamming might shake ice from the ceiling. You notice now the tiny things. The way wax doesn't drip, just hardens in place. The way spoons stick slightly to your lip if you forget to warm them first. The way your breath fogs so thick it curls like ribbon above your tea. And outside, the stillness continues. The great frost, people will call it one day, but right now, there is no name for it. No one knows it's the worst cold in centuries. No one knows that it stretches across country after country, from Sweden to Sicily, freezing lakes, snapping trees, even solidifying the ink in a nobleman's fountain pen mid-letter. You just know that this is the kind of cold that buries itself in your bones. The kind that makes your fingernails feel hollow. The kind that makes you move slower, not out of caution, but because the world demands it. Later that night, after you've curled up on the floor beside the stove and wrapped your feet in someone's old coat, you hear a strange sound, a sudden snap. You sit up. It's the glass in the mirror. It's cracked. Not because it was hit, but because the cold crept in and split it from within. You stare at your reflection, split down the middle, and wonder how long this winter will last. The next morning your hands are stiff before you even sit up. Not just numb, wooden. Like your fingers are carved from ice-slicked driftwood, and someone forgot to give them joints. You flex them slowly, trying not to wince, and tug your sleeves down past your knuckles for warmth. But warmth is in short supply. You shuffle toward the hearth again, that stubborn circle of soot and stone. The logs you stacked yesterday are still there, looking at you like they're in on the joke. You crouch down and try again. New cloth scrap, new flint strike. The steel sparks, but the air seems to drink the heat before the flame can even think of being born. You whisper something under your breath. Nothing sacred, just instinct. A hiss between your teeth. You consider spitting on the logs just to give them some moisture to fight with. At last, a weak flicker dances in the pile. It's not a fire, not yet. More like a question. A glow the size of a coin. You blow gently, coaxing, careful not to overwhelm it. There, a lick of yellow. You don't move, not for a full minute. The tiniest sound might scare it off. You feed it kindling slowly, one splinter at a time. You watch it grow like a sickly plant, thin, unsure, but alive. It hisses and pops as it crawls across the base of the logs. Then, miracle of miracles, it holds. Not roars, not crackles, just holds. The house doesn't feel warmer, but your mind does. You sit there, cross-legged, holding your palms near the flame. You don't want to waste the heat on your skin yet. Just knowing it's there is enough for now. You warm a bit of bread by holding it near the flame, rotating it like it's precious gold. The outside crisps slightly. The inside stays cold. Still, it tastes better than anything you've eaten in days. Later you step outside to fetch more wood, and you realise something strange. Your breath freezes on your scarf in layers. Not just damp, but stiff. Your scarf feels like it's slowly becoming a plank. You pause and glance up the street. The bakery chimney is quiet. Too quiet. The baker usually starts before dawn. But today, there's no scent of yeast, no smoke, no chatter of delivery boys. You walk past the shuttered shop and peer inside. Everything's still. You keep walking until you see a man on a ladder, chipping ice off the eaves of his roof with the end of a broom. You raise a hand. He nods back, wordless. The wind is too brittle for talking. Around the corner, a group of women are gathered near the communal oven. Not baking, just standing. One holds a bundle of sticks. Another has her baby strapped tight to her back, his little hat crusted with frost. They're waiting their turn. You don't ask for what. You just add your own small bundle of wood to the growing pile and step back. Everything this winter is slower. No arguments, no greetings, no laughter. Just breath, fogging into the air like smoke signals of survival. You head home, boots scraping on stones so cold they ring like chimes, and when you reach your door, you notice the handle is stuck, not jammed, frozen. A sheen of rime has formed where your own breath lingers each morning. You snap it loose with your sleeve and step inside. The fire has gone out, and so you begin again. You don't get angry, not anymore. The fire dying while you are gone is just another part of the rhythm now, like frost on the windows or the sound of distant footsteps crunching in the street. You kneel, rearrange the logs and begin the ritual again, but your hands are slower this time. Every time you strike the flint, it feels like your wrists are wrapped in wet cloth. The spark lands, but the wood isn't ready. The kindling won't catch. Maybe it's the moisture in the air, or maybe it's that you've done this too many times, and the cold is beginning to teach you patience the hard way. Eventually, you coax another flame to life. This one's smaller than before. You don't breathe on it. You just watch. It flickers like it's uncertain about being here. You tuck your knees to your chest, arms wrapped around yourself, listening to the gentle crackle. It's barely enough to warm your fingers, but you stretch them toward it anyway, grateful for even the illusion of heat. From somewhere above, there's a hollow tapping sound. You pause, listening. It happens again, then again. You step to the window and peer up. A sheet of ice is peeling away from the edge of the roof. It taps against the wall once more before sliding free, shattering into jagged stars on the stones below. You stare at the shards for a long moment. Across the street, you notice a neighbour balancing a tin kettle on a chair near the wall, angling it to catch the melting drip from their eaves. Just enough to fill a cup. You smile, though your lips don't quite get there. Too numb. In your little kitchen, you open the cupboard again. The potatoes are spongy, the flowers clumped, but there's still salt, and that's something. You carve a sliver off the heel of an old cheese rind and pop it in your mouth. It's sharp like ice and vinegar, but it reminds you you're alive. The chimney lets out a sudden low boom, not dangerous, just the sound of trapped air and thawing creosote snapping loose. You flinch anyway. Outside, the silence remains, except for one thing. You hear footsteps, slow, crunching ones. Not a crowd, just one person. You lean toward the window and see the cooper's apprentice, shoulders hunched, carrying a cask on his back. You're not sure where he's going with it. Maybe it's empty, maybe frozen beer, maybe just something he can trade. He nods when he sees you at the window, and you nod back. And just like that, you feel a little less alone. You remember the story someone told at the woodpile, that in a village not far from here, the wine in the cellars froze so solid it cracked the bottles, that it had to be chipped out with a chisel. You wonder what frozen wine tastes like, or if it sings like ice when it breaks. As night falls again, you light a stub of candle and pull your blanket close. The fire hasn't lasted long, but you don't mind. You've learned to fall asleep with cold fingers and warm thoughts, like the smell of baking bread, or the crackle of logs that don't die out, or the whisper of spring. Morning doesn't come with sunlight anymore. It comes with sound, a dull clatter, the rattle of boots on frost-hardened stone, the groan of shutters being forced open with stiff hands, the scrape of someone trying and failing to clear ice from their windowsill. You sit up slowly. Everything aches, even the soft parts. Your joints don't bend the way they used to. Your neck creaks like a door hinge. You check the fire. You don't expect it to be alive, and it isn't. Just grey ash, cold and settled. You dress in layers that don't match. A shirt with a torn sleeve, 2 pairs of socks, a vest borrowed from someone no longer around. The coat you wear now is more patch than fabric, and it smells like old smoke and mothballs. You wrap a scarf around your face until only your eyes show. Then you head to the market. The air outside hits you like a wall. You breathe through the wool of your scarf, but it doesn't help. The cold stings your eyelids. Your tears freeze before they can even fall. The market square, once a place of noise and bargaining, now looks like a forgotten play stage. The stalls are open, but the colours are gone. No fresh fruit, no hanging fish. Just a few sad bundles wrapped in cloth. Dried onions, stiff loaves, carrots that snap like sticks when tapped. You walk past a woman trying to sell cracked eggs. She holds them out on a tray, but the yolks are already frozen, yellow and useless. One is split down the middle, another is stuck to her glove. She doesn't speak, just looks at you, waiting. A man offers bread, but it's hard as a stone. He holds it out and thumps it against his cart to prove how solid it is. You nod, though you can't afford it. He shrugs, as if to say, no one can. Someone's dragging a sled across the square. Not for fun, not even for a child. It's loaded with a sack of coal and what looks like a bent chair leg. People watch, quietly calculating how much heat that might bring. Not warmth, heat. There's a difference now. You spot the tailor, wrapped in 4 layers of wool, trying to sell fur scraps for mittens. He smiles faintly when he sees you. He's sewn fur to his own boots, not with thread but with wire. It jingles slightly when he walks. A group gathers near the well. The pulley system has frozen solid, but someone's chipped a small channel through the ice with a kitchen knife. People hold pots beneath the trickle, waiting patiently. No one pushes, no one talks. It's too cold for that. You try not to breathe too deeply. The air dries out your throat. You feel like you're swallowing ash. On your way home, you pass a boy, maybe 11, carrying a basket of turnips wrapped in old fabric. They're the colour of bruises. He's talking to himself as he walks, a kind of half-singing, half-mumbling. He's not begging, just keeping himself company. You almost smile. Almost. You make one last loop through the square, passing a stand you hadn't noticed before. Just a low table with jars lined up on cloth. Preserves, maybe. But as you get closer, you see they've all frozen solid. The fruit inside has expanded, cracked the glass, and now glistens in jagged patterns like stained ice. A woman sits behind them, wrapped in 3 shawls, her eyes blinking slow. She's not selling, just sitting. Maybe remembering the summer those fruits came from. You glance toward the bakery. Still no sign of life. But something draws you closer. The door is ajar. You hesitate at first. It's not yours to enter. But the cold makes a rule softer. You step in and call out gently. No answer. The inside is dim and cold as a cellar. Shelves empty. Dust on the counter. The big oven that once filled the block with the smell of crust and cinnamon now sits lifeless. Its mouth gapes open like a forgotten cave. But then, in the far corner, you see it. 1 loaf, round, flat, a little frostbitten around the edge, but intact. You approach, half expecting it to vanish. Your breath fogs the air, curling around the edges of your scarf. You reach out and touch it. It's hard, like stone wrapped in cloth. But bread is bread. You glance around once more, then place a small coin beside it. You're not sure if anyone will ever pick it up. but you feel better leaving it there. When you get home, you slice it carefully with your sharpest knife. The crust splinters like old plaster. You toast it gently over a flicker of flame, then rub it with a clove of garlic and a drizzle of old oil. It's the best meal you've had in days. As you eat, you notice something strange. The corners of your mouth ache when you chew. You realise you haven't smiled in nearly a week, and this almost feels like smiling. Later you lay the remaining slices out on the windowsill, hoping the cold will preserve them. Nothing stays fresh in the frost, but nothing rots either. Time for food and people seems to have slowed down. In the evening you sit by the hearth, watching your reflection in the cracked mirror. Your face looks older this winter, not tired, just weathered, like wood that's been through many rains. The fine lines beside your eyes seem deeper, or maybe it's just the flickering light. You hear footsteps again outside, lighter this time. Children, probably, crunching snow in heavy boots. You lean toward the window and spot them running down the lane, scarves trailing, cheeks flushed red from the air. One throws a handful of snow at the other. It misses and explodes harmlessly against a door frame. They don't stop, just laugh, loud and clear, and vanish around the corner. You sit back and exhale through your nose, a quiet puff of amusement. Even now, especially now, laughter still finds its way in. Then the wind rises, curling around the shutters like fingers. It hums low and deep, like a cello bow dragged across a single string. You pull your blanket tighter, finish the last bite of bread, and close your eyes. Tomorrow there'll be ice on the stairs again. And eggs frozen solid and a line at the well, but tonight for a moment you feel full. The river used to move like a living thing, gurgling beneath the bridge, rushing over stones, carrying leaves, voices, gossip. But now it's silent, stilled, gone still in a way that unsettles something in your ribs. You stand at its edge and stare. Where once water danced, now lies a smooth grey-white sheet stretching bank to bank. Not fresh snow, not powder. Ice, thick and hard and strangely flat. It doesn't ripple or shine, it just waits. A few others stand nearby, boots crunching at the frozen edge. No one speaks. You all look out over the same wide frozen ribbon, half expecting it to shudder beneath your gaze. It doesn't. You step forward. Your boot meets the ice with a dull scrape. Then another step. The surface feels wrong. Not brittle, not soft, just unfamiliar, like walking on marble made of time. A man farther up the bank throws a log across the surface. It clatters and skips, then spins to a stop near the middle. No crack, no groan, just silence. Another woman whistles low through her scarf. You take a few more steps out slowly, listening for complaints from beneath. But the ice holds. A dog appears, barking wildly, and takes off running across the river's back as if it were any other morning. Its paws leave faint marks in the powdered frost. The children cheer from the shore, and for a moment it feels like spring again. Then someone calls out, "Careful!" You stop mid-step. Your weight shifts. The ice answers. A long, slow groan hums beneath your boots. Not sharp, not cracking, just the sound of something ancient waking up. You freeze. Not from the cold this time, but from instinct. Then it passes. You exhale and walk back toward the edge, retracing your steps carefully. Each footprint now a soft indentation in the powdered crust. You glance upriver and spot something unexpected. Two fishermen kneeling on opposite ends of a small square they've carved into the surface. Their breath curls upward in twin columns as they dangle short lines through dark holes in the white. One looks up and gives a small wave. You wave back, uncertain, but grateful. In a strange way, this frozen river has become a gathering place, a wide, icy plaza where neighbours cross paths in slow glides and cautious steps. Someone set up a small brazier near the bridge. Smoke curls upward in lazy spirals, not enough to warm the air, but enough to remind you that heat still exists. You stay longer than you meant to. The quiet is oddly peaceful. The cold, while biting, feels cleaner out here, less heavy than in the stone walls of home. You watch a boy in a red scarf push a little wooden sled across the ice with a stick. He's not racing, just drifting in wide, lazy circles, around and around, as if the world has finally stood still long enough to breathe. You wander farther upriver, your boots crunching in rhythmic silence. The world feels paused, frozen not just in temperature but in time. Trees bend under their own icicles like they're bowing in slow motion. A line of laundry, long forgotten, hangs stiff between two poles, frozen shirts fluttering like the ghosts of summer days. You stop at a familiar bend in the river where the ice has caught everything mid-motion. A half-sunken boat is trapped beneath the surface, preserved like an artifact, or, still dangling, fishing net frozen in a tangle of glassy loops. It must have drifted loose before the freeze, and now it lies there, waiting for a season that might never return. You crouch near the edge and run a gloved hand across the surface. Cold soaks through the leather instantly. Below, through a patch of clearer ice, you can see pebbles on the riverbed, stopped mid-tumble. Even the silt looks frozen in place, like time itself gave up trying to flow. Behind you, someone laughs. A short, sharp sound. You turn to see a man balancing carefully on old wooden skates. Not fast, not graceful, but determined. His arms flap for balance. His coat flares out behind him. Each time he makes a wide circle, the blades shriek against the ice. He doesn't fall. He just keeps going. Soon, more arrive. A woman with a violin case slung over her back. 3 boys carrying sticks, arguing over rules for a game they're clearly making up on the spot. A girl with a dog on a long rope, both slipping in opposite directions. They all gather near the bridge, as if this river, once a danger, is now the village square. A fiddler sets up near a crate and begins to play. Just a tune, nothing dramatic, nothing fancy. The sound drifts low and thin across the ice, nearly swept away by the wind. But it's enough. People begin to move differently. Feet tap, shoulders sway. A man hums. You stand there, watching, and something stirs in your chest. Not warmth exactly, but movement, like the beginnings of a thaw, deep inside where the cold had started to settle for good. You notice the little things now, the way ice crystals gather in the corner of your eyelashes, the faint sting of breath against your upper lip, the gentle flapping of a scarf caught in a breeze, and beneath it all, that low, constant groan of the river ice, like the earth reminding you it's still here, just sleeping under a heavy quilt of winter. You don't know how long you stand there. The fiddler keeps playing, the skater circles, the boys shout rules for a game with no goal, and the girl with the dog falls, laughs, and gets up again. Eventually, your hands go too numb to stay. You turn homeward, cheeks tingling, ears buzzing from the wind. You glance back once more before rounding the bend. The frozen river lies behind you, unchanged. But you carry something from it now, not fire, not food, but proof that even stillness can hold joy if you know how to look. The next morning, something feels different. Not warmer, not brighter, just louder. Not in noise, but in colour. You blink a few times and sit up. The light leaking around the shutters seems sharper, clearer. You can almost feel it cutting through the frost. When you open the door, the cold bites like always, but the air carries a hum, and then you hear it, distant music, not from an instrument, from voices. You follow the sound instinctively, pulling your scarf tighter as you round a corner into the square. And there it is, the Frost Fair, born overnight like a dream. You rub your eyes, wondering if this is one of those sleep hunger visions, like the ones where you eat a whole roast chicken with your bare hands. But it's real. The Thames, frozen solid beneath your boots, has been transformed. What yesterday was a river of stillness is now a carnival on ice. Dozens of tents and makeshift stalls line the white surface, flapping and snapping in the wind. People bustle between them in layers of wool and colour, cheeks flushed red, breath like smoke signals in the sun. The sound of bells jingling. A man shouting over the wind about roasted chestnuts. Hot ones. Real ones. Not too burnt. There's the thump of boots dancing, the scrape of wooden blades on ice, the sharp crack of something being hammered into a barrel. You walk slowly, almost unsure if your feet can believe it. A woman with a tray of sugared almonds offers you a sample. You nod thanks, though your fingers are too cold to dig for coins. She shrugs and drops a few into your glove anyway. No one's keeping accounts today, she says with a wink. There's a booth selling toffee apples, though the apples are shriveled from frost and the toffee's too hard to bite. Children take them anyway, carrying them like trophies. You pass a man carving names into blocks of river ice, selling souvenirs of the fair that will melt come spring. One stall boasts, "Printed here upon the ice." You lean in and see a little wooden press, its letters already inked. A small boy turns the crank with mittened hands as his father folds fresh sheets of paper printed with today's date and the words Frost Fair 1709. You buy one, for no reason but to say you are here. Farther down, a tent has been transformed into a puppet stage. A crooked curtain flaps in the breeze. Inside, a small crowd huddles for warmth, not drama, but they still laugh at the clumsy jabs and high-pitched voices of cloth-made jesters. You find yourself smiling without realizing it. A group of fiddlers, perhaps the same ones from the bridge yesterday, strike up a reel near the centre of the ice. The crowd parts slightly as dancers take the space, their movements stiff but joyful. Someone's even brought a drum, banging it with a ladle wrapped in cloth. It's absurd, beautifully absurd. This isn't warmth, it isn't comfort, but it is life. Defiant, ridiculous, colourful life stomping its feet at winter's face. And for a moment you forget the cracked mirror, the fire that won't catch, the ice on the inside of your windows. For a moment you're simply here, on a river that no longer flows, in a season that won't end, standing among strangers who decided that if the world was going to freeze, it might as well dance first. You wander deeper into the Frost Fair, where the river bends wide and the tents grow stranger. There's a man selling cold remedies from a cart that looks suspiciously like a barrel on wheels. He waves a ladle theatrically, declaring his tonic can heat your blood like firewood. You peer into the mug he hands you. It's mostly warm beer and something that smells like horseradish. You sip. It burns your throat, makes your eyes water, and immediately clears your sinuses. You cough, and he claps. Next to him, a woman has built a tower of frozen bread. Not for sale, just display. Loaves frozen in ridiculous poses, one with a pipe carved into the crust, another balanced like a circus act. She laughs when someone calls her mad. "Better to be mad than miserable," she replies, poking a baguette into a snowbank to balance a pie tin on top. Someone's roasting apples over an open grate. They hiss and spit, skins splitting open like little warm secrets. You take one gladly, juggling it from glove to glove, teeth aching for that burst of something sweet. It tastes of ash and cinnamon and smoke. A boy, perhaps 14, maybe younger, pushes past you with a wooden tray strung around his neck. Tiny figures carved from ice wobble inside it. Frozen ballerinas, dogs, soldiers with frozen swords. He doesn't speak, just nods and keeps moving. One of his carvings has already begun to melt. He doesn't seem to mind. Toward the centre of the fair, there's a curious shape on the ice. A makeshift bowling lane, complete with 9 skittles frozen upright. People take turns rolling iron balls at them, slipping with every toss. Cheers rise, laughter follows, and someone loses a boot mid-throw. A man with a red scarf and a voice like Gravelhawk's candied nuts by singing made-up songs. No real melody, just rhythm, rhyme, and energy. Children echo his verses, turning his pitch into a game. A woman nearby sells pickles in frozen brine. When asked how anyone's supposed to eat them, she shrugs. Wait for spring, she says, then winks, or suck slowly. The sunlight, weak but steady, filters through the pale sky and dances off the ice. Everyone squints a little. Some have tinted spectacles. Others wear makeshift visors of stretched fabric or darkened glass. You pass a stall giving away scraps of paper with hand-drawn fortunes, none of them serious. Yours reads, "You will survive the cold but misplace your socks." Not wrong. Just past that, a group has formed a circle, and you hear the creak and glide of makeshift skates. A girl twirls, 1 spin, 2 spins, before crashing gently into a snowbank with a laugh. Her friends cheer. She bows dramatically, pretending she meant it all along. You can't help but laugh, too. This place is cold, yes, but the cold isn't winning today. Today you're skating on a river that's supposed to carry ships, eating apples where fish once swam, reading newspapers printed directly on ice. And you think, this isn't survival anymore, it's spiteful celebration. It's turning misery into theatre, hardship into festivity. It's saying, if the world insists on freezing, then fine, we'll sell souvenirs on its frozen back. When you finally head home, cheeks stinging and breath fogging sideways in the wind, your scarf smells like smoke and toffee. Your pockets are empty. Your belly's not quite full. But your heart? That's a different story. You're home again now, but something's shifted. The cold hasn't let up. Your windows are still rimmed with frost, your boots still stiff with frozen mud, but the silence feels less heavy, as if the laughter and music from the frost fair echoed all the way back into your walls, settling in the corners like a memory that warms from within. You sit by the hearth, watching the last curl of smoke fade from the coals. Not quite enough heat to thaw your toes, but enough to keep your breath from fogging. You rest your chin on your knees and let the quiet settle. Then, knock knock. It's soft, hesitant. You open the door, and there stands the neighbour from 2 doors down, the one with the stiff moustache and the permanently suspicious eyebrows. He doesn't say anything, just holds up a tin kettle. "Tea?" he says, like it's a question and an offering. You nod. A moment later he's inside, sitting on the stool you don't usually offer to guests. You pour what water you have left into the dented pot and angle it close to the embers. It takes forever to heat, but neither of you speaks much. You just sit. 2 people waiting for water to boil. Eventually it does. Barely. The steam that rises is thin and brief, but it's enough to brew something. He pulls 2 little paper-wrapped packets from his coat and drops them into your mugs. You watch as they bloom, the colour spreading like ink in snow. It's not the best tea. You're not even sure it is tea. But it's hot, and it's shared, and that's more than most things have been lately. While you drink, he tells you about the cracked beams in his pantry, about the day his cat refused to walk on the floor because it was too cold, about how he tried to make stew and the carrots shattered like glass. You nod, then admit you've been burning old sheet music to keep warm. He raises an eyebrow. You expect judgment, but instead he laughs. "Better burn a waltz than your boots," he says. You offer him a piece of toasted bread, what's left from yesterday's fare. He breaks it in half and savours it like it's cake. Then he tells you something odd. "The judge's fountain pen froze," he says, mid-sentence. Ink froze in the nib. You blink. Did the sentence make it through? Almost, he shrugs. Just stopped right after henceforth. Now it just says hence. You both chuckle. Not a big laugh. Not the kind that echoes, but a small, real one. The kind that lingers longer than heat. Later, after he leaves with a nod and a refilled kettle, you look around your little room. The cracked mirror, the blanket hung over the doorframe, the floor where you've marked the warmest corner by instinct, not science. And then you see it. On the table. He left behind a whole stick of kindling. Just one, but dry, clean, and wrapped in a bit of twine. Not a gift, not a favour, just a quiet message. You're not alone. The stick of kindling stays on the table for hours before you decide what to do with it. You consider saving it for a colder day, but then again, what day isn't colder? Eventually you unwrap the twine, set it gently on the grate, and watch as the flame catches quickly, as if the wood had been waiting its whole life to burn just right. The fire doesn't roar, but it glows, and the warmth creeps out in waves, enough to soften the soles of your boots and coax your fingers into movement. You sit beside it, cradling your last tea in both hands, letting the quiet settle once more. The house next door rattles with footsteps, loud, cheerful ones. You peek out and spot a woman hauling in a crate of kindling, one end balanced awkwardly on her shoulder. A boy follows behind her, carrying what looks like a frozen cabbage as if it were treasure. The door swings shut behind them with a thump and a cheer. Across the lane, someone has hung a sheet outside with charcoal scrawled across it. It reads, "If you need something, knock, or just yell." A sort of frost-season bulletin board. Soon, others add their messages. Simple things like, boiled water available, trade, wool for candles, room warm enough for sitting, one just says, still here. You read each one with a quiet sense of awe. Not for their poetry, but for their honesty. That afternoon, the sound of hammering rings out from the square. Curious, you bundle up and shuffle down the street. Someone is reinforcing the well's handle with a pair of metal braces and 2 warped chair legs. It looks ridiculous, but it works. Now the bucket lowers again, cranky but functional. Nearby, the baker, yes, the one who disappeared days ago, has returned. Or at least someone is tending his oven. The door is propped open, and a line is already forming. You hear someone murmur that he's baking with ground oats and beer yeast this time. Creative. While you wait, you notice a stack of flat stones arranged like seats around a fire pit. Someone's brought logs, real ones, dry. There are 5 people sitting already, huddled near the flame with bowls cupped in their palms. One of them offers you a seat. You hesitate, then sit. The bowl past your way holds something that might be soup. Thin, smoky, flecked with what could be onion or turnip. It doesn't matter. It's hot. You eat slowly, savouring the feel of warmth from the inside out. Nobody talks much. Someone tosses a potato into the fire embers, wrapped in cloth. Another stares up at the clouds, trying to guess if snow's on the way. You join in the silence. Later, as the sky darkens and the fire burns low, someone begins to hum. Soft, low, tuneless. One by one the others join, not with words but with notes and breaths. Not a song, exactly. Just something close. You hum too. You return home that night with your belly warm and your hands no longer aching. The wind still howls. The shutters still rattle. But somehow, it feels different now. Because now, the village isn't silent anymore. It's humming. The wind is cruel again today. It whistles through the alleyways like it's got business there. Fast and sharp, with no time for mercy. It sneaks in beneath your coat and between your collar and scarf, like fingers made of ice looking for somewhere to rest. But you know its tricks now. You've learned how to move through it. Slow, deliberate, layered like an onion and twice as stubborn. You rise earlier than usual, nudged awake by a draught that found its way under your blanket. You don't bother lighting a fire, there's no time. Instead, you throw on your thickest layers and head outside into the morning frost, where the air stings your cheeks and freezes in your nose. Today's mission: fill the water jugs. Not the little ones, the big ceramic ones you've been saving for when the well works again. And it is working now, mostly. Thanks to the braces and the chair legs. A miracle of splinters and desperation. You haul the first jug down the street, muscles tight, breath visible. The well is busier now, everyone carrying something. Buckets, kettles, jam jars, old wine bottles repurposed for survival. People wait without complaint. There's no shoving, no muttering. Just small nods and the sound of boots on packed snow. You recognise a few faces. The man with the tea packets from next door. The woman with the sheet that says knock or yell. A pair of brothers who carry everything between them like mirror images. When your turn comes, you lower the jug slowly, carefully. The rope creaks but holds. The water comes up cold, clear and precious. You pour it into your jug, wrap it in a blanket, and begin the walk home. Halfway there, you hear a sharp snap and spin around. Just a tree limb. Another one, fallen under its own frozen weight. You pause anyway, heart racing for a moment before settling again. Then you keep going, adjusting the jug's position against your hip. Back inside, your windows are starting to bloom again, not with flowers, but with frost. Patterns that look like vines and feathers creep across the glass, delicate and precise. If it weren't so cold, it would be beautiful. You set the jug in the corner where it won't freeze as quickly and reward yourself with a hunk of bread from the cupboard. It's gone hard again overnight. No matter. You hold it near the candle stub, letting the waxy warmth loosen its edges. As you chew, you glance around your single room. The chairs stacked in the corner, the boots drying near the hearth, the woolen mittens you stitched from 2 ruined socks, the marks on the wall where you've been recording days not with numbers but with charcoal lines and sketches, fire held, soup shared, wind less cruel, and today gets a small star. Just one, but still, because the jug is full, and the well still turns, and because later, when the neighbours stop by, you'll offer them warm water in chipped mugs, and they'll stay long enough to talk, not just survive. The first visitor is the girl from the sewing house down the street, the one with the red mittens stitched from blanket scraps and buttons that don't match. She doesn't knock, just taps once and peeks in. You nod, and she enters without a word, stamping snow from her boots. She brings nothing but conversation, and that's enough. She sits near the hearth, resting her feet beside the lukewarm coals, and pulls something from her pocket. A half-finished glove, a needle threaded and ready. Her hands work while she talks, though her fingers are stiff with cold. You talk about small things, the water at the well, the apple she found hidden under her bed, still good somehow. How the man who sells firewood has started telling stories again, charging a log or two to hear them. Apparently he claims he once wrestled a swan during a summer storm. No one believes him, but everyone listens anyway. Later, the man with the kindling from next door stops by again. This time he brings a tin of ash he says burns slow when mixed with sawdust. He sets it down beside the hearth, like it's an offering to the room itself. You all sit for a while, not quite talking, not quite silent. Each breath fogs the air slightly and the fire sputters quietly, fed with a bit of candle wax and whatever shred of cloth you could spare. And then someone knocks again. This time, it's the boy who skated down the river days ago, now bundled in a coat that reaches his knees and a scarf twice his size. He carries a kettle in one hand and a spoon in the other. "Trade?" he asks, holding them up. You offer him a mug of warm water and a hunk of bread. He hands you the kettle, then sits cross-legged on the floor and begins telling a story. Not one he heard, but one he's making up as he goes. It's about a goose that learns to dance on ice and joins a circus of frozen fruit vendors. No one stops him. The girl sews, the man sips tea, you stir the ash mix into the coals, and the boy's voice carries through the room like the wind outside. Unexpected, sometimes sharp, but comforting just the same. Eventually, someone suggests soup. It's not really soup. Just water, salt, a carrot shaved into ribbons, and something that might be dried mushroom. But when it simmers, the scent is warm enough to trick your stomach into believing it's a feast. The kettle bubbles, the bread softens, the warmth spreads, not just from the fire, but from the nearness of people, the quiet presence of others who have chosen to gather, even when it would be easier to stay inside their own blankets and wait for spring alone. Later the boy nods off mid-sentence. The man dozes too. The girl keeps sewing, but slower now, her stitches wandering. You sit among them, this small group of mismatched souls, gathered not by invitation but by cold and choice. Outside, the wind rattles the shutters again, but you barely notice. Inside, it's still cold, but the room is full. By morning, they've all gone. The boy with the dancing goose story left his spoon behind. The sewing girl folded her half-finished glove into her coat and slipped out without waking anyone. The man with the kindling nodded once and disappeared like smoke. But the air inside your room feels different. The silence doesn't press down on you today. It rests lightly, like a blanket you chose instead of one you were forced to wear. You rise slowly, stretch stiff limbs, and check your fire. Still alive, just barely, a nest of embers clinging on like old memories. You stir them gently, add a scrap of wood and a twist of dried grass, and watch as the soft glow stirs into light. Then, you do something you haven't done in days. You clean. Not much, just the table, a bit of sweeping, folding the blankets, straightening the corner where the bowl tipped over yesterday. You find a single breadcrumb under the cot and laugh out loud at how thrilled you are to see it. You leave it there, like an offering or a souvenir. Outside, the sky's cloudless. It's the first time in weeks that the sun doesn't look embarrassed to be seen. It's pale and distant, yes, but it's there. You squint upward and feel something shift in your lungs. Not warmth, but air that wants to be warm. You take a deep breath and head to the square. There's something strange in the air. Not celebration this time, not frost fair fanfare. Something quieter. Repair. You spot 3 people patching the side of a roof with broken shingles and fabric. Another is fixing a shutter hinge with a spoon and twine. Someone is dragging a chair frame across the snow to trade for dried beans. You pass the bakery again. The door's wide open now. A sign, hand-painted and nailed to the door frame, says simply, "Come in if your hands are warm." You do. Inside, the heat is minimal but real. A little fire burns low in the corner. Bread is stacked along the counter. Flat, dark, chewy loaves baked in shallow pans. Not elegant, not soft, but honest. The baker grins from behind a foggy pane of glass and pushes one toward you. You try to hand over a coin. He shakes his head. "Only take what you'll finish," he says, "and bring the crusts back. We use them in the next batch." You nod and leave with a warm parcel under your arm. Back at home, you prepare a little breakfast. Bread. The last of the carrot ribbon. A cup of boiled snow. You sit and eat slowly, chewing each bite like it might be the last of its kind. Not because you're starving, but because it's earned. Then you go to the cupboard, rummage for anything usable, and begin your own repairs. A splintered drawer, a crack in the floorboard. You even straighten the picture frame above your bed, though the glass inside is frosted so thick you can't see the image anymore. Still, you remember what's behind it. Still, you care enough to fix it. By midday, the repairs have turned into something else. Ritual, maybe. Not just fixing what's broken, but reclaiming space. Restoring rhythm. Sweeping the corners where frost once curled like fingers. Brushing away dust that somehow gathered even when the air itself was frozen. You don't have much to polish, but you do it anyway. The kettle's dent is still there, but now it shines faintly in the candlelight. You sharpen your one good knife until it glides through stale bread like it remembers how. And you even sew a patch onto your coat. Red fabric against dull brown. Bright. Bold. Almost silly. But maybe a little silliness is what the cold can't touch. Later, you pull the chair close to the fire, closer than usual, and sit with your back against the stone, letting heat creep up your spine. Your shoulders sink, your hands curled in your lap finally stop clenching. You sit still for a long time, eyes half closed, listening to the fire whisper to itself. Then there's another knock. It's a small family this time. A woman with a kind face, a man carrying a bundle of firewood, and a girl with a satchel full of buttons. They're not asking for anything, just checking. They've been making rounds, they say, house by house, seeing who needs what. You pause, then nod. You give them the extra blanket from your cot and half a loaf of today's bread. In return, they leave behind a bundle of dried herbs and a tiny tin of lamp oil. The girl, maybe 10 or 11, spots your frost-covered window and steps over. She draws a little bird in the ice with her finger. Just a curl for the body, a line for the beak, 2 quick flicks for wings. You blink, and it's gone, evaporated by her warm handprint. She grins and waves as they leave. You stare at the empty window for a moment, not because you're sad it's gone, but because you noticed it, because something small and beautiful happened, and you were awake enough to see it. That night you light your lamp for the first time in days, just for a while, long enough to stitch another patch, long enough to warm the room with its soft amber glow. The walls catch the light differently now. They aren't less cracked, but they feel more real, more yours. This room, this space, this winter, it's shaped you, yes, but you've left marks of your own. The mirror, still cracked down the centre, reflects the lamplight in strange angles. You see yourself fragmented, maybe, but also softened, lined, stronger than you remember. Before bed you write something on the inside of your cupboard door with charcoal from the hearth. Just a note, nothing grand. Still standing, still warm, still here. Then you blow out the lamp and curl beneath the blanket, listening to the distant creak of wood and wind, and you fall asleep not with fear, but with a small growing certainty. Tomorrow you'll get up and do it all again. The snow is falling again, but it's different this time. Not the hard, wind-sharpened flakes that whip sideways and sting your face. No, this snow is quiet, heavy, gentle. It tumbles down like sleep. Soft, thick, and slow. You open the shutters and let it in, the white glow of the outside world spilling across your floorboards like milk. Everything is muted. The roofs, the chimneys, the steps, even the cracks in the street have vanished beneath a seamless white sheet. You pull on your coat, your scarf, your patched gloves, and step out. Not because you need anything, but because the snow makes it feel like the world's been reset, like it's offering you a blank page. Your boots crunch into the powder with satisfying weight. Each step leaves a mark, and for a moment it feels like you're the first person to walk this road. The quiet is total, interrupted only by the soft flump of snow settling from tree limbs and the occasional creak of a signboard shifting under the weight. You turn down a lane you haven't walked in weeks. The draper's shop is boarded up. The hatmaker's window is fogged over, but there's movement behind it. A shape. Someone brushing frost off the inside of the glass with the sleeve of their coat, then sticking up a new piece of paper. Willing to trade. Warm caps for dry kindling. You raise a mittened hand. The figure waves back. No words needed. You keep walking. A narrow alley. A small courtyard you forgot existed. There's a clothesline between two shuttered buildings, and someone's hung little packets from it, tied with string dangling like ornaments. You step closer. Each one has a note attached. Some are recipes. Some are jokes. One just says, "You made it to today. Good job." You take that one, slip it into your pocket, and feel something inside your chest thaw a little more. Down by the old mill, the snow is piled so high it hides the broken wheel completely. Just a round dome of white now. Children have been there. Small boot prints, a trail of sled tracks, and a row of snowmen lined up like silent sentries. Some have coal eyes. Others wear scarves made from unravelling rags. One has a teacup for a nose. You smile and keep moving, breath puffing out in slow clouds. As you pass a window, you catch a flicker of firelight. Inside, a family is sitting cross-legged around a large pot. One of them is stirring. Another is playing something like a fiddle, but made from scraps. The tune leaks out through the window cracks, wobbly but determined. Back at home, you shake the snow from your coat, set your gloves near the fire, and hang your scarf to dry. Then you pull the note from your pocket and smooth it flat. You made it to today. Good job. You pin it to the wall. No fanfare, no celebration. Just a small acknowledgement, written by someone who understands that sometimes surviving another day is enough to be proud of. You sit down beside the fire and close your eyes. The sound of snowfall, still whispering against your window. You leave the note on the wall, not because you need the reminder every day, but because on some days you might. And maybe if a neighbour drops by and sees it, they'll need it too. You press it gently into place with a smooth stone from the riverbank. The one you picked up months ago when the water still moved. The snow keeps falling. By afternoon, the whole village has been muted under its weight. Sound feels padded, absorbed. Footsteps are swallowed. The cold is still sharp, but the stillness now carries a softness, like a hush in a library where winter is the only book being read. You head back to the square, this time bringing 2 tin cups and a spoon in your coat pocket. Not because you're visiting anyone in particular, but because people gather where the snow is thickest. You can feel it, and sure enough they're there. Not many, just enough. A handful of neighbours, standing in a crooked circle around a kettle set over a shallow brazier. They've packed down the snow beneath them with so many footsteps, it looks like a sunken garden. One woman is ladling out something that smells like broth and vinegar and roasted parsnips. Everyone brings something, bits of dried vegetable, spoonfuls of grain, a few herbs, even crumbled biscuit. You pass your tin cups forward and offer the spoon. No words. It's not about fairness or flavour, just sharing. Someone's brought a deck of cards with one missing. They shuffle anyway and make up a game with strange rules that change every round. You play a hand or two. You lose, of course. But no one keeps score. That's not the point. At some point, a man clears his throat and starts telling a story. Something about a goose with boots who solved a mystery in a cabbage field. The others laugh at the wrong parts, and he pretends to be annoyed, but keeps going anyway. It's not about the plot. It's about the voice, the sound of not silence. As the sun starts to sink, barely a sliver through the clouds, the woman who stirred the soup reaches into her coat and pulls out something wrapped in a handkerchief. She unfolds it carefully, reverently. Inside is a tiny cake, a real one, dense, dark, studded with dried berries, the kind you bake only when something matters. She cuts it into thin slices with a paring knife no larger than her thumb. She gives out each piece slowly, like passing out pages from a book that's about to vanish. When it's your turn, she smiles and says, "You made it." Just that. You nod and take your slice. It tastes like molasses and orange peel and the memory of birthdays. It's not sweet enough to be luxurious, but it's real enough to remind you that life continues, even when everything outside your door insists otherwise. You stay until the fire burns low and the cups are empty. Then you walk home under snowflakes fat and slow, the kind that land on your coat and stay visible long enough to admire. One lands on your glove, perfect and symmetrical. You stare at it until it melts into nothing. At home, you take off your boots, hang your coat, and run a finger across the little note on the wall. Tomorrow, the cold will still be here, but so will you. The barn door is frozen shut. You lean your full weight against it, shoulder pressing into the warped wood, breath coming in clouds. The hinges groan like tired bones, then finally give way with a loud crack, as if the building itself resents being disturbed. Inside, it smells of straw, old fur and dust that hasn't been able to float for weeks. You let your eyes adjust to the dimness, one hand braced on the doorframe. The air is sharp, unmoving. Your breath hits it and hangs there, just like the scent of hay that never fully faded. You walk down the centre path between 2 rows of empty stalls. It's quiet now, still. But this place once lived. The animals are gone, not in the way you feared, not tragedy, just necessity. Most were sold off early in the winter when fodder ran low and firewood took precedence. A few were butchered carefully, gratefully, with hands that shook not from guilt, but from cold and hunger. One by one they vanished from the stalls. First the chickens, then the goats, then Old Red, the milk cow who'd lived through 3 winters before this one. You stop at her stall now. Her name is still scratched into the beam, faint but there. You run your fingers across the groove. There's still hay in the corner, frozen solid, stiff like splintered paper. You crouch down and pull a handful loose. Beneath it, you find something unexpected, a leather collar. You lift it slowly, cracked but intact. The name tag is gone, but you know whose it was. The old shepherd dog, the one that used to follow the children to the well and curl up near the oven and bark at carts as if they were bandits. You smile, just barely. It's strange what the cold doesn't take. It steals sound, warmth, softness, but sometimes it preserves. Like the ice has chosen to press pause on small things, hoping someone will come back for them. You pocket the collar and stand, bones creaking like the rafters above you. Sunlight filters in through a hole in the slats, catching dust that isn't quite moving. Outside, the snow crunches beneath your boots as you step into the yard. The chicken coop still stands, barely, a few shingles missing, the ramp askew. But inside you find 2 eggs, not fresh, not edible, just there. Frozen solid, tiny monuments to stubbornness. You leave them untouched. Somehow, it feels right. Back at the house, you set the collar on the table beside the kindling bundle from last week. 2 memories, side by side. You stare at them both while the kettle heats. The water boils slowly as always, and you pour yourself a mug, adding a twist of dried herb from the tin. The steam curls upward like a spirit, fogging your cracked window pane. Outside you hear laughter. You peek out and see 2 people pulling a sled down the lane. Not a child's sled, but one for hauling. It carries a pile of crates and something covered in wool. The one in front calls out, "Easy now," and the other stumbles, laughing as the sled tips slightly. Sideways, they right it again and carry on, and you wonder, not for the first time, how many little things are still out there, preserved by the cold, waiting to be found. Later that afternoon, you decide to check the shed behind the house, the one you've ignored for weeks. The latch is iced over, stiff with rust and frost, but it yields to a few sharp knocks and the heat of your breath. Inside, the smell of frozen soil and old rope greets you. It's darker than the barn, colder too. You half expect to find nothing but splinters and spider husks. Instead, you find a surprise, a small bag of oats, half a sack really, hard and clumped but dry, tucked behind a broken crate, hidden like a forgotten treasure. You lift it with both hands and the weight makes your knees wobble slightly. You laugh. Not a sharp sound, but a soft one, the kind that escapes without planning. You carry it inside with ceremony, clearing a space on the floor near the hearth as if welcoming an old guest. You don't waste time. You grind a handful by hand, crushing it against the smooth stone slab. It takes ages, but the rhythm of it feels good, familiar, like a chore you once hated, now made sacred by rarity. Once ground, you boil it slowly, watching the water change colour and thickness. The smell is mild, earthy and faint, but it fills the room like incense. You add a pinch of salt, stir with a spoon the boy left behind, and sit close while it bubbles. When it's done, you spoon out a single bowl, wrap your hands around it, and eat with closed eyes. It tastes like memory, like the early weeks of autumn when the market still carried fresh things, like the kitchens full of steam, like breakfast before the cold made mornings into enemies. You finish every bite, scraping the bowl clean, and set the rest of the oats aside, tucked in a box lined with cloth. Enough for tomorrow, enough for someone else if they stop by. As you wash the bowl, a knock comes again, gentle, hesitant. This time, it's the man who sharpens tools. He carries a bundle of knives and scissors in a canvas roll, and he offers you a trade. He'll sharpen anything you've got if you can spare a cup of hot water and a place to rest for an hour. You let him in without hesitation. He sits near the fire, opens his roll, and begins to work. The sound of metal against stone is soothing, slow, rhythmic, like a heartbeat for a house that has been too quiet. You offer him bread, and he accepts it wordlessly. He hands you back your knife, now gleaming at the edge, and says, "That should slice cold butter now." Before he leaves, he tells you there's talk of ice cracking near the edge of the river. Not enough to break, but enough to hum. A low sound, almost musical. You thank him and close the door behind him, fingers brushing the lintel like a sign of quiet gratitude. Outside, the snow continues to fall, but softer now, like a secret being shared. You sit back at the hearth, knife in hand, and smile, not because you're safe, not because it's over, but because somehow you're still finding the pieces of a life, your life, amid the frost, and you're putting them back together, one sharpened edge at a time. The cold isn't gone, not even close. But by now you've grown so used to its presence that it feels less like an enemy and more like a demanding house guest. Always there, always in the way, but no longer surprising. You wrap your scarf 3 times instead of 2. You double your socks without thinking, and you move slower on purpose, the way people do when they're used to walking on ice. This morning, there's a sound outside, a familiar one, light, uneven footsteps. You open your door and see them. Children. Their laughter reaches you before the sight does, tumbling through the air like wind chimes in a storm. They're bundled in mismatched coats, scarves too long for their bodies, gloves that don't match, boots stuffed with rags. But their faces are red with cold and grins. They're building something in the middle of the lane. At first you think it's a snowman, but as you get closer you realise it's not one. It's several. A whole row of lopsided snow figures, each with a different personality. One with a frying pan for a hat, another with a crooked carrot sticking out of its chest like a badge. One wears a belt like a sash. A tiny army of frostbitten characters standing guard over nothing at all. A little boy waves you over. You shake your head, but he insists, holding up a dented tin lid. "It's a shield," he declares. "We're building soldiers." You don't correct him. You just smile. Soon, one of the older girls is sliding down a pile of packed snow, using an old wooden crate as a sled. She shrieks with glee as it bounces over frozen ridges, her scarf trailing behind like a banner. Others take turns pushing each other, slipping and collapsing in fits of laughter. And then someone calls out, "Snow tag!" It begins instantly. Snowballs fly, powdery and slow, puffing into harmless clouds. The children shriek and scatter, hiding behind fences and barrels, peeking from corners. A snowball smacks the side of your door. A boy shouts, "Sorry!" but grins as he runs. You stay and watch. Not because you're supervising or guarding or even involved, but because in that moment the street is alive in a way it hasn't been in weeks. In a way you didn't realise you missed until you saw it again. The cold is still here, but it can't catch them. Not when they're moving so fast. Not when they're loud enough to drown out the groan of frozen beams or the crack of shifting roof tiles. Eventually they grow tired. One by one, they slump into snowbanks or curl up beside one another in shared blankets. Someone passes out a handful of toasted seeds in a waxed pouch. Someone else starts a game of guess what I saw at the fair, and the answers are ridiculous. A pig on stilts, a man dancing on cheese, a chimney that sneezed. They glance at you occasionally as if checking to see whether grown-ups still exist. You raise your mug of tea like a toast. They nod in return, solemn as kings. After a while, the snowball war gives way to quieter games. The kind that don't require energy, just imagination. One child takes a stick and begins drawing in the snow, carving out winding roads that loop between doorsteps and around snowbanks, turning the entire street into a miniature frozen map. Another balances a small jar of pebbles on her head and tries to walk from one side of the lane to the other without dropping them. She makes it halfway before slipping and laughing so hard she can't stand back up. No one tells them to go inside. No one scolds. This kind of noise, the good kind, is allowed to echo. You head back into your house briefly, returning with a small tin of dried apple slices you'd been saving for something important. This feels important. You hold out the tin wordlessly, and the children pass it around like a sacred treasure, taking one each, as if afraid too many might make the gift vanish. One boy sits beside you, legs stretched out, arms behind his head, looking up at the sky like he has nowhere else in the world to be. "Do you think it'll ever be warm again?" he asks, not sadly, just curious. You glance up with him. The clouds are high and thin today, strands pulled across a pale sky. A breeze shakes loose some snow from a chimney and sends it tumbling like feathers. "It will," you say, after a pause. "Not today, but soon enough to surprise us." He seems satisfied with that. Across the lane, someone is carving designs into the hard-packed snow with a spoon. Simple shapes at first. Stars, spirals, waves. Then faces, birds, what might be a cat. The wind catches some of them, softening the edges, but the designs remain. Temporary art in a season that's taken nearly everything. Soon, parents call from doorways. Not urgently, just gently. One by one, the children rise, brush off their coats, collect their things. A few wave as they leave. One little girl slips you a folded paper before she disappears. Inside, you unfold it carefully by firelight. It's a drawing, done in charcoal, quick and clumsy. A house with smoke curling from the chimney. Someone at the window. A snowman with arms raised. the sun big and smiling in the corner. At the bottom, in crooked letters, it says, "Thank you for the apple." You set it on your table next to the collar, the note, and the crust of bread you've been too sentimental to finish. It joins the growing pile of reminders that this winter, for all its cruelty, is full of small kindnesses that refuse to freeze. That night, as you lie in bed, you think about how the street sounded. Boots and laughter, voices rising above the snow. The cold is still there, ever present, pressing against the walls and windows. But you've heard the antidote now. It sounds like footsteps and stories and children screaming with joy. It sounds like life daring to echo through frost. And for the first time in a long while, the quiet that follows isn't empty. It's earned. You wake to the sound of hammers, not one, but several, syncopated and persistent, like the rhythm of a workshop come back to life. It's still early. The sun hasn't quite broken through the clouds, but the light outside is brighter than usual, tinged with the faintest yellow. You rise, pull on your layers, and open the door. The sound grows louder. Metallic clinks. The thud of boots on wooden planks. Voices too. Short, purposeful instructions pass back and forth with the kind of focus you only hear when people are trying to build something. You follow the noise to the square where a crowd is gathering. At the centre, a strange new shape is rising from the snow. A scaffold, made of salvaged wood, crooked beams, mismatched planks, and frozen rope. It leans slightly, but it's solid. Beside it stands a cart piled with boards, tools, barrels, and crates. The cooper is there, sleeves rolled, hammer swinging with practiced rhythm. Next to him, the blacksmith's apprentice works a hand-crank drill, his cheeks red and determined, and nearby, yes, unbelievably, the baker is back again, stacking crates to create a makeshift stall. The sign says, "Hot rolls, 2 per soul." You join the gathering cluster of neighbours watching the construction. Someone whispers that they're building a stage. "For what?" someone asks. "Whatever we want," says another. You stand beside the man who sharpens tools, who nods approvingly and mutters, "About time." No one has to explain the logic. It's not for warmth, not for food, not even for trade. It's for reminding everyone that even when the world freezes over, there's still room for stories, for song, for standing in the open and being seen. By midday, the scaffold has a rough platform and a short railing. The snow around it is stamped down flat with so many boots it looks polished. A little flag flutters at the top, nothing fancy, just a strip of red cloth tied to a stick. But it dances proudly. That afternoon the first performer appears, a boy with a voice too big for his coat and a coat too big for his frame. He steps onto the platform, clears his throat and announces that he will perform the entire history of the world poorly remembered. The crowd laughs before he even begins. He starts with a tale of woolly mammoths who wore boots, then leaps to Julius Caesar inventing soup, and somehow ends with a cow becoming queen. It makes no sense. It's utterly ridiculous. And it is perfect. You laugh harder than you have all winter. After him, a girl steps up with a fiddle made from a cracked wooden box and twine. She plays a tune so warbly and bright that even the crows seem to pause and listen. A couple near the edge of the crowd begins to dance, awkwardly at first, but then with confidence, boots sliding on packed snow. Someone passes around mugs of something warm, cider or broth or tea, no one knows. You drink yours in slow sips, letting the steam blur your vision, slightly. Not from heat, but from something else. Because this is no longer a town simply enduring. This is a town declaring itself alive. By late afternoon, the stage is crowded with volunteers, one after another, braving the cold to offer whatever they have. Stories, songs, jokes, even a clumsy puppet show using socks and sticks. No one heckles, no one critiques. This isn't about skill, it's about showing up. You stay longer than you planned. The sky turns from pale grey to dusky violet. Snow flurries drift lazily, but no one leaves. People simply tighten their scarves and pull in closer, circling the stage like moths around a candle flame. You feel someone bump your shoulder gently. It's the girl from the sewing house again, now wearing the red gloves she'd stitched by your fire. She holds out a square of cloth, its corners embroidered with tiny patterns. You take it and unfold it to find the word stitched in tight black thread. We didn't freeze, we danced. You swallow hard and nod. Behind you, someone starts a slow clap and the crowd joins in. Not thunderous applause, just a ripple of appreciation that spreads like warmth. The performer bows awkwardly and nearly slips off the stage. Laughter follows. Someone helps him down and offers a biscuit. A child approaches the front of the stage, clutching a book with the cover falling off. She climbs up carefully, opens it with frozen fingers and begins reading, haltingly, uncertain but clear. It's a fairy tale, one about a sleeping forest, a talking fox and a boy who finds a spring under the snow. Her voice wobbles at first, but people lean in. They listen. You glance around and realise something you hadn't noticed before. There are no vendors shouting, no bartering, no one asking how much or what for. Just the quiet exchange of presence, effort and care. A new economy built entirely on showing up. The girl finishes her story and steps down to quiet applause. Someone wraps her in a scarf twice her size, and then, from the far end of the square, a sound rises, low and soft at first. A hum, one voice, then another. It's a song, no lyrics, just melody. You don't know who starts it. Maybe it was always there, just waiting. But soon the hum becomes harmony. The crowd sways slightly. Some close their eyes, some clasp hands. Others stand still, cheeks flushed, breath visible in the golden light of lanterns hung along the scaffold. You hum too. And it feels like the cold holds back for a moment, just long enough to let the sound pass through, untouched. When the singing fades, no one speaks. Not because there's nothing to say, but because silence for once feels full. You return home through the quiet streets. The snow glows faintly in the lamplight, and your boots leave a trail of half-melted impressions behind you. Your coat smells faintly of smoke and cinnamon. Inside, the fire has gone out, but that's all right. You stir the embers, add a pinch of sawdust and twine. The flames return without protest, and as you warm your hands, you look at the cloth in your lap again. We didn't freeze. We danced. You believe it now. It's pantry day. You've been putting it off, but now the cupboard creaks each time you pass it, like it knows you're avoiding eye contact. So you set a candle on the table, brace yourself and open the doors. The cold hasn't spared this space. Inside, glass jars are fogged and sweating. A crock of pickled cabbage has cracked clean down the side, frozen brine oozing like syrup. The vinegar smells sharp in the air, bright and unpleasant. A tin of lard has gone solid as stone, and when you try to scoop it, your spoon clinks off the top. You pick your way through carefully. A bag of flour, hard as clay. A pot of stewed pears, half empty and lined with ice crystals. 3 onions, 1 soft, 2 salvageable. A single dried sprig of thyme, long forgotten at the back of the shelf, still intact, still fragrant. You smile, just a little. You light a second candle and lay everything out on the table. No feast, but enough. Enough for soup. Enough to share. And that alone feels like wealth. You chop slowly, deliberately. The onions are stubborn. The pears squish, but not badly. You scrape the edges of the cracked crock into a pot and stir in snow to soften the brine. A trick someone taught you during the fair, Freeze ruins the food, but it also changes it, makes it stretch, makes it blend, makes it work. The pot simmers over a slow fire and your home fills with scent, strong, sharp, sweet. A strange mix of preservation and invention. It smells like caution and hope cooked together. You open the window just a crack, and within 10 minutes someone knocks. It's the tailor this time, holding a piece of torn fabric and looking sheepish. "Do you have a needle?" he asks. "And perhaps a chair to sit on while I find my thread?" You let him in. While he sews, he talks. Not about the cold for once, but about colour. He tells you which dyes freeze and which ones don't, which threads hold their hue in the wash. He says purple lasts longest in winter, clings to cloth like a stubborn thought. You ask him how he knows, and he just shrugs. You serve him soup without asking. He takes one sip, then stops. "What is this?" he asks. You glance at the pot. "Leftovers," you say. "And time." He nods like you've said something profound. Later, another knock, then 2 more. The girl with the button satchel returns, this time carrying 3 cracked teacups and a folded napkin. The woman who wrote Knock or Yell arrives with a small bag of crushed oats. The boy who carved snow figures shows up last, empty-handed but offers to clean the spoons, and just like that, your home becomes a kitchen, a shared room of quiet work and fragrant steam. People chop, stir, sew, sip, no ceremony, just rhythm. You hang a fresh towel over the fire to dry. You open the cupboard again and find space. And somehow space feels like abundance. The pot never empties. It should. Mathematically, logically, it should have run dry hours ago. But every time, someone ladles out a bowl, someone else adds a scrap of something, the last of a root vegetable, a sprinkle of dried greens, a half cup of snow melted just enough to thin it back out. No one measures, no one hoards, and yet the soup continues. You joke that the cold has made time loop inside your pot, and someone laughs so hard they spill their spoon. The tailor finishes his mending and leaves a thimble on the table in thanks. The girl with the buttons arranges them on the windowsill in a crooked smile before slipping out into the night. The boy who carved snowmen clears the cups without being asked, humming some tune he's making up as he goes, and after they've gone, you sit at the table, fingers curled around the last warm bowl, watching steam rise and vanish into the rafters. There's a certain kind of silence that comes after good company. Not emptiness, not loneliness, just the echo of presence, a room that remembers what it felt like to be full. You stretch your arms, arch your back and look around. The space has changed, or maybe you've just begun to see it differently. The table, once cluttered and cold, now bears signs of use. Knife marks, crumbs, drops of broth, a spoon resting thoughtfully in a chipped bowl. The hearth is glowing again, not bright, but steady. The smell of time still lingers in the air, tangled with onion and soot. And the cupboard, once a place of dread, is now a space of potential. You get up slowly and tuck the remaining soup into a crock near the fire. Not to hoard, just to save a little warmth for tomorrow. Then, as you move to close the shutters for the night, you pause. There's a flicker of motion outside. Across the way, 3 homes have lit candles in their windows. Not lanterns, not for light. Just candles, small flames that flicker like signals. You stand at your window and watch them dance. It's not a plan, not something discussed. It's just a gesture, a quiet way to say, we're here, we're awake, we're still going. You light one of your own, set it on the sill in a jar, shielding it with your hand until the flame steadies. Its glow joins the others, barely visible through the frost, but enough. You stare out for a while, arms folded, the heat from the candle seeping gently into your fingers. No parade, no triumph, No loud declaration, just one soft flame among many. The wind rattles the shutters again, but doesn't get in. Inside, you sit back down at the table, pick up the thimble, and roll it between your fingers like a pebble from some faraway beach. You smile. Not everything freezes in winter. Some things keep moving. Quietly, stubbornly, like fire. The next morning begins with a scent you didn't expect. Vinegar and smoke. It drifts in through the cracks in your window frame, curling like a ghost around the rim of your teacup. You pause, sniff again, and step outside, following your nose as if it has better judgment than your feet. Down the lane, the cooper's yard is full of barrels, not stacked, not sealed, but open, lined up like a procession, each one filled with something pungent and preserved. Cabbage, beets, onions, pickles so sour you can smell them from the street. The cooper's wife stands beside them, sleeves rolled, ladle in hand. A long table has been laid out, rough wood, uneven legs, one side propped with bricks, and atop it sits a spread of offerings so humble they might as well be a royal banquet. Spoons carved from driftwood, crusts soaked in vinegar, rinds shaved into curls and laid like ribbons on wax paper. A jar of horseradish, its lid half frozen shut, is being passed around like a relic, and in the centre of it all, a pot, tall, iron, seasoned so black it reflects no light. Steam rises from it with the thick, slow confidence of something that took hours to coax into existence. You join the line without needing to ask what's being served. Behind you, someone mutters, "Pickle stew again?" and another answers, "Better than no stew at all." By the time it's your turn, the ladle is slick with brine and ash. The cooper's wife hands you a wooden bowl with a lopsided smile. "Don't let it fool you," she says. "It tastes worse than it looks, but it fills the corners." She's wrong, though. It tastes like something alive, sour, bitter, sharp. Wakes up parts of your mouth that had forgotten how to feel. You eat slowly, letting the heat reach the roof of your mouth, the back of your throat, the tips of your fingers. Someone hands you a wedge of crust to mop up the bottom. You nod in thanks. Then someone else, unprompted, starts stacking snow to build a bench. Just 3 crates and a plank. But before long, more join in, hauling stools, clearing slush, repurposing firewood into chairs. A circle begins to form. By mid-morning, it's not just a meal, it's a gathering. Not planned, not invited, just happening. The cooper's apprentice starts tuning a small stringed instrument with only 3 strings. It sings like a broken bell, but no one minds. A teenager recites lines from a play half remembered, stumbling through the words, laughing when she forgets them. Someone brings out a flagon of something fermented, and it's passed carefully from hand to hand, each person warming their fingers before taking a sip. You look around the circle and realise you've seen all these people before, at the well, the stage, the fire, but never like this. Never all at once. Never so still and so strangely full. It isn't celebration, it's preservation. The circle lingers longer than it should, long past the moment when the pot is scraped clean and the last crust has been divided into thumb-sized pieces, long after the wind picks up again and the snow starts to fall sideways instead of straight down. No one moves, or maybe no one wants to be the first to move, so they don't. Instead, someone starts sharing news. Not gossip. Real news. Who's patched up their roof? Who found an extra tin of butter buried in a snowbank? Who managed to unclog their stovepipe using a bootlace and a curtain rod? Little victories. The sort of things that matter in winters like this. You listen, and you share too. You mention your pot of soup that lasted 2 days longer than expected. The girl's drawing. The thimble from the tailor. The eggs in the coop you never cracked. And people nod, the kind of nod that says, Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Someone next to you pulls a scrap of paper from their coat pocket. A poem, scribbled in a child's handwriting. They read it aloud, stumbling a little. Cold feet, warm fire, snow falling higher, 1 bowl, 2 spoons, we eat under moons. The group doesn't cheer, doesn't clap. But the silence afterward is kind, full, like the way a room feels just after someone says something true. And then the unexpected happens. Someone starts handing out pieces of chalk, thin, pale, scavenged from old schoolroom supplies. They begin drawing on the barrels, the crates, the planks of the table. Not art exactly, just marks, swirls, faces, little sunbursts. Someone writes the word still in capital letters across a board. Someone else adds beneath it, together. You find yourself smiling as you take your chalk and approach the table. You write, more inside us than winter can take. You don't know where the words come from. Maybe they were there all along. When the snow picks up again, people begin to drift off, not because they're cold, but because they're ready. Ready to carry a little of this back with them. A warmth that's not in the hands, but in the habit of coming together. Before you go, the cooper's wife hands you a small flat parcel wrapped in parchment. Just a little sourness to keep you sharp, she says. Inside, 3 pickles, wrapped tight, still cold, still good. You carry them home carefully, like they're something sacred. That evening you slice one thin, place it on bread with the last of your mustard, and eat by firelight. It crackles, it bites your tongue, it makes you laugh out loud, sharp and sudden, like it caught you by surprise. You pin the chalk words you wrote to your wall beside the girl's drawing and the stitched cloth. Then you light your window candle again. Outside, across the way, you count 6 others glowing back. The cold takes things quietly now, not with crackling frost or sudden bursts of ice, but with stillness. The kind that settles into places you've already cleaned, into corners you thought were safe, into moments when your hands are warm, but your thoughts drift to memories of green fields and wet soil. You sit at your window, candle glowing beside you, and watch the world hold its breath again. No laughter from the square today. No music on the wind. Just the hush of a town resting after too many shared stories, too many open doors. It's not sadness. It's something else. A kind of winter exhale. You make tea slowly, wrapping your hands around the kettle long after it's gone lukewarm. You toast the last end of a crust and sprinkle it with salt and a little vinegar from the parcel the cooper's wife gave you. The flavour stings your tongue and wakes you up. The fire needs tending. Again. You kneel and shift the logs, coaxing heat from what's left of yesterday's burn. It's getting harder. The wood's drier now, lighter. You've burned the best of it. What remains is stubborn, smoky, reluctant to give back warmth. You sit by it anyway, watching the flames struggle upward. Outside, snow falls without pattern. It drifts lazily through the air like it has no deadline, no destination. The ground is already thick with it, clean and white, but hiding everything. The streets, the steps, the tools someone forgot beside their door, all erased, and for the first time in days no one knocks. You find yourself hoping someone will, just for a word, or a trade, or a laugh. But the silence remains, thick, heavy, familiar. You pull out the things that remind you you're not alone. The stitched cloth. We didn't freeze, we danced. The charcoal drawing. A house, a sun, a thank you. The chalk words from the barrel. More inside us than winter can take. You lay them out on the table like talismans, little pieces of proof. And then you do something unexpected. You write a letter, no address, no recipient, just words on a scrap of old paper, folded carefully like a gift. You write, today was quiet, the snow is deep, but we're still here, and that means everything. You fold it, tuck it into your coat, and step outside. The wind bites, but you don't flinch. You walk down the lane, past shuttered windows and snow-covered stairs. At the corner, you find the message wall, the one where neighbours used to hang scraps, offers, notes. You pin your letter to a nail beneath a half-frozen sign that says, "Soup tomorrow." No one sees you, no one replies, but somehow it feels answered. You walk home slowly, not because of the snow, though it's deep enough now that each step takes effort, but because you're listening. For what? You're not sure. A distant hammer, a voice, a scrape of shovel against stone, the kind of sound that says I'm here too. But today, there's only wind and silence. Still, the letter remains on the message wall, and you know someone will read it. Maybe not now, maybe not even tomorrow, but someone will pass by, chilled and tired, and see those words. We're still here, and that means everything, and they'll nod, even if they don't know who wrote it. Back inside, the warmth feels thinner than usual. You light the fire again, using the last of the bark you peeled from the woodpile 2 weeks ago. It smokes a little, but catches. You warm your hands, then your toes. You boil water, even though you're not thirsty, just to fill the air with something other than cold. As the room slowly thaws, you set to work rewrapping your feet. The cloth is worn, the seams soft with overuse. You consider cutting a piece from the curtain, but then notice the corner of your coat, the frayed bit you always tuck under. It will do. You snip a strip and begin to sew. The needle moves slowly in your stiff fingers, and each pull of thread feels like a heartbeat, steady, deliberate. Mending is not fast work, but it's quiet, and quiet is something you can sit with now. While you sew, your eyes drift to the wall. The candle stub flickers. Shadows dance across your drawings, your stitched cloth, your chalk scrap. Each one from a different day, a different version of yourself, not forgotten but layered, like frost on a window that never quite melts. A soft knock startles you. You rise, surprised, and open the door. It's the old man from the edge of the village, the one with the coat that's more patch than fabric. He says nothing, just holds out a small box wrapped in brown paper. His breath fogs in the air between you. You take it, nod, and hand him the smallest slice of bread left in your cupboard. He nods in return. When he's gone, you unwrap the box. Inside, a candle, whole, unused. Tucked beside it, a note written in shaky hand. For the window. Light it when it feels too quiet. You sit down slowly. No feast, no firewood, no conversation. Just this. A candle and the permission to use it. Later that night, you light it. Place it in the window and sit beside it. Not waiting, not hoping, not asking, just being. The flame flickers, and the frost on the window begins to melt in a perfect circle. By morning, the circle on your window has grown. It's not much, just a palm-sized patch where the frost has pulled back, revealing the world outside in a blurry oval. But it's enough. Through it, you see the lane, a crooked fence, a trail of boot prints curving toward the square, and in the distance the faintest plume of chimney smoke curling up into the pale sky. You press your fingers against the glass and feel the chill bite back. The candle in the window is still burning, smaller now, the wax pooling at the base like melted snow. But it kept its promise. It lit the silence. It held space through the night. You get dressed slowly with the practiced ritual of someone who's done it 100 times this winter. Socks over socks, shirt tucked deep, sleeves doubled, scarf wrapped tight. You take a square of bread, a wedge of frozen pear, and step outside. The air feels different, still sharp, still dry, but carrying something faint beneath it. Something that might, if you're generous, be called softness. You walk toward the square. There's no plan, no goal, just movement. The snow is higher than it's been, and with each step your boots sink deep, leaving crisp wells behind you. You look back and see your own trail winding clean through the white, and then you hear it, a crack. Low and distant, like a tree splitting in the woods. You freeze, scanning the sky, but it's not above, it's beneath. You follow the sound instinctively, feet crunching with each careful step, toward the river, toward the stretch where the frost fair once bloomed in wild defiance. When you reach the banks, you see it. Just a sliver at first, running along the middle of the ice, a fault line, a winding, jagged seam that splits the frozen surface like a handwritten note from the earth itself. Not forever. You step closer. The river doesn't groan this time, it sings. The ice hums under your boots, not with danger, but with tension, as if it's been holding its breath for weeks, and now, slowly, carefully, it's beginning to exhale. You look out across the vast white plain that used to be water. The stalls are gone, the banners, the laughter, all packed away or buried beneath snow. But here and there traces remain. A board half submerged, a string of faded ribbon caught on a branch, a single mitten frozen into the edge. The crack deepens slightly with another sharp pop, and you take a respectful step back. Others begin to arrive, drawn by the same sound. Quietly they form a line along the bank. No one speaks. No one needs to. You all stare, listening to the river return. It doesn't burst open. It doesn't roar. But it shifts, and that shift is enough. Behind you, someone murmurs, "It's starting." You don't ask what. You just nod, because you feel it too. Not the end of winter, not yet, but the beginning of something else. The ice doesn't break all at once. No cinematic crack splitting the river in two. Just slow, creeping movement, deep, rumbles beneath the surface like a giant shifting in its sleep. You and the others remain on the bank, silent, watching. There's no fear, not anymore. The fear passed weeks ago when you realized the world wasn't ending, just pausing. Someone steps forward with a stick and gently taps at the frozen edge. The sound is dull, solid, but under the surface the water has begun to stir. You can feel it, even if you can't yet see it, like warmth moving behind a wall. Across the way, a flock of birds suddenly lifts from a rooftop, wings beating against the stillness. A few people flinch, not out of fear but out of habit. The sky's been so empty for so long, anything in motion feels like a surprise. You glance around, the same faces from the stage, from the soup circle, from the snowball battles and the candlelit window nights. Some hold hands, others stand with arms crossed, shoulders hunched, but all of them are looking at the same thing. The river not quite awake, not quite sleeping. And then the ice whispers, not a crack or groan, a sound like shifting silk, a slow sigh, a ripple of something unseen moving beneath the glass. You crouch down and place your glove against the surface. It's colder than anything should be, but it's also trembling, barely, a heartbeat. You stay like that for a while, listening with your hand. Eventually you stand, brush snow from your coat, and start back toward the village. You pass by the square. A man is taking down the scaffold, not out of defeat, just practicality. The wood is needed elsewhere now. He stacks the planks carefully, respectfully, as though the stage were a friend who'd said goodbye and asked to be remembered kindly. The message wall has new scraps pinned to it. One says, "Thor spotted at Southern Ridge." Another, "New soup at noon, same barrel." And one more, handwritten in a child's careful scrawl, "River singing. You smile. At home, You light your candle again, even though it's still daylight. Not because it's needed, but because it's yours. You pour the last of your snow-melted water into the kettle and add a curl of dried root for flavour. The scent rises. Familiar now. A mixture of days endured and hours shared. Outside your window, snow still falls. But thinner now, slower, like it's second-guessing itself. You sit by the fire and take up your mending again. Not because something's torn, just because it feels good to fix things. You don't speak the words aloud, but they hang in the air anyway. It's not over, but it's beginning to change, and that's enough. The change doesn't arrive like a parade. It creeps in sideways, so subtly you almost miss it. First it's the sound, not the crack of ice or howl of wind, but something smaller. A rhythmic drip, steady, slow, unmistakable. You hear it before you see it, and when you do, it's just a single droplet falling from the edge of your roof, leaving a tiny hole in the snow below. You stare at it like it's a miracle, because maybe, in a winter like this, it is. The sun doesn't exactly shine, but it shows itself more boldly. Behind the clouds, its shape is clearer, its light a little more yellow than grey. The air still stings your nose, but it no longer feels like punishment. That morning, you don't wrap the extra scarf. You almost regret it. But not quite. You walk out into the day, and the snow beneath your boots feels different. Less like powder, more like slush. You step through it, noticing how it clumps at your heels, how it leaves wet marks on stone. At the message wall, a new note flaps gently in the wind. Eggs traded for wool, bring 2. The handwriting is tidier than usual. Hope does that. You meet a neighbour you haven't seen in over a week. She's walking stiffly, holding her back, but her cheeks are flushed with effort and her eyes are bright. You exchange no words, just smiles. That's enough. Words are heavy in winter, smiles are easier to carry. On your way back, you pass a tree you've walked by 100 times. Today, for the first time, you notice its buds, tiny, pale, trembling with the effort of existing. You kneel, brush away some snow from its base, and there, pushing through the hardened earth, is something green. You actually laugh, not a polite chuckle or a wistful sigh, but a real, sudden bark of joy. Then you look around to see if anyone heard. No one did, but that doesn't matter. You make a new habit. Every morning now you walk to the tree, check the buds, brush away the snow, whisper to it if you feel like it. The tree doesn't answer, but you don't need it to. Inside, your room has changed. It still smells of wood smoke and wool, but now there's also the faint tang of thawed mud, of melting boots, of air that's been outside and come in carrying news. You wash your hands with melted snow and lay your fingers on the table. The chalk words are still there, more inside us than winter can take, and next to it you draw something new, a single leaf, just one. Because sometimes one is the beginning of everything. You wake the next morning to something you haven't heard in months. Birdsong. Not many birds. Not yet. Just one. A clear whistling trill from somewhere near the chimney. You lie still, afraid that moving might scare it off, even though you're inside, under layers of patched wool and rough blankets. There's something about that sound, something ancient, almost like your body remembers it before your brain does. The way it used to mean time to plant or time to open the shutters, a song older than frost, older than fear. A sound that says, you survived. You get up and crack the window open, just an inch. The cold slips in immediately, but it's a softer cold now, less like a blade, more like a handshake. You listen. There it is again. A chirp, then silence, then another, farther off, like a call being passed between branches. Outside, the square looks changed, not in any grand way, just a little messier. The snow is no longer pristine. It's slushed and churned, pocked with boot prints and scattered hay. A few brave souls are sweeping their stoops, not because it helps much, but because it feels like it helps. You grab your scarf, your coat, and head out. Today, there's smoke from chimneys, more than usual, and people are talking, not loud, not in groups, but enough that you catch bits of it in the air. Warmer yesterday. Pond near the mill is moving again. Traded 3 carrots for a button. Can you believe? At the cooper's workshop, someone's hammering again. You pause to listen to the rhythm of it. Not fast, not frantic, just steady. You walk down the alley by the baker's shop. The bread sign still hangs, crooked as ever. But for the first time in weeks you smell something real. Yeast. Flour. A scent that lingers even after you've passed by. There's a man near the well, chipping at the ice with a pick. It's thinner now, the ice, and when it breaks, it cracks into slivers instead of heavy slabs. A few children, older ones, gather nearby to watch. They clap when the water splashes up. It's the sound of returning. You stop at the message wall again. More notes today. One reads, "First daffodil, no lie." Another, "Tea at dusk, bring cup." And someone, using a burnt twig, has scrawled a crooked little sun in the corner. No words, just that. You smile. Back at home, you open your window a little wider. Let the air in. It smells of wet earth and old wood and something else. Something like newness, hiding just beneath the surface. You take the stitched cloth from the wall. We didn't freeze, we danced, and hang it in the window where the candle used to go. Let others see it. Then, for the first time all season, you sit by the fire with your coat off. Your shoulders relax, your hands warm quicker. And without thinking, you whisper the smallest promise, almost there. You step outside with no scarf. It feels like rebellion. The air still bites, but less fiercely now. The snow under your boots crunches wet, not brittle. The sky wears a thin, watery blue that promises little, but somehow it's enough. You turn your face up to it and squint. The sun's still hiding, but you can tell it's behind there, waiting. Around you, the village is beginning to loosen. Chickens, actual chickens, are pecking nervously at thawing earth behind a slanted fence. Someone's dog, long unseen, dashes past with a boot in its mouth, tail whipping like it's forgotten how cold feels. You smile before you can help it. A week ago, this would have felt like a hallucination. Now, it feels like a memory returning. The river is still frozen in parts, but near the shallows you spot movement. Not water, not yet, but slush, drifting lazily where ice used to dominate. A boy is poking at it with a stick. His boots are too big. He's wearing 2 different gloves. You don't ask his name. You just nod as you pass, and he nods back like you've shared some private joke. The town square's no longer silent. It's messy, lively, a little chaotic. Someone has dragged a battered table out and laid fish to dry on it. Another person is trying to sell bundles of something green. On closer inspection, it's just damp moss, but no one complains. Green is green. At the message wall, more notes. Millstone turning again. Hen laid one, not sure if dream. Soup line longer than queue for bread. You see people laughing. A man walks by with an accordion slung over his shoulder. He doesn't play it, just carries it like a memory of what fun used to feel like. Maybe tomorrow he'll play, or the next day, or maybe just knowing he still has it is enough. You walk toward the chapel, not for prayer, just because it's high ground. From the slope behind it, you can see rooftops, chimneys, laundry lines draped like flags of surrender. No one waves them anymore. Instead, you see shirts pinned with pride, blankets hung not to dry, but to declare we are still here. You spot the tree again, your tree, the one with the early buds. It's different now. The branches don't droop from ice. They stretch, almost arrogantly, toward the pale sky. You kneel beside it. The snow is thin here, patchy, mixed with mud and straw. At its base, new shoots, tiny, bold, green like you've forgotten green could be. You press your hand against the earth, still cold, still hard, but not dead, never dead, just waiting. And now it begins. You wake to the sound of boots in the street. Not frantic boots, not the desperate stomp of someone chasing firewood or water, but purposeful ones. Boots going somewhere. Boots that say, there's work to do. You sit up and glance at your window. The frost ring is gone. All of it. The glass is clear. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, you can see the world without peering through a frozen porthole. Outside, things are shifting. Someone is hauling barrels toward the square. Another is dragging a broken bench from where it's been buried under snow since Candlemas. You hear hammering in the distance, steady, rhythmic, almost musical. The village is waking up. You wrap your coat around you, not out of necessity but habit, and step out. The ground squishes. The snow is patchy now, revealing the rough earth below. Brown, yes, but moving, breathing. And beneath your boots, puddles form and reform like tiny lakes learning how to be water again. You spot two men repairing a cartwheel. One has a pipe clenched in his teeth. The other keeps blowing on his fingers and swearing in half whispers. You offer them your gloves, but they refuse, smiling, proud. Fingers cold but moving. At the corner, near where the baker's boy used to shout, someone's drawn a chalk sun on the cobblestones. It's childish and lopsided. But it stops people in their tracks. A woman actually kneels beside it and traces it with one finger, like she can't believe it's real. Later, in the afternoon, there's shouting from the riverbank. You rush over, heart in your throat, fearing the worst. But no, someone's fishing. The water's broken enough now to toss a line, and someone somehow has bait. You don't ask how. Some mysteries are better left undisturbed. A small crowd gathers. No one expects a catch. That's not the point. It's the gesture, the theatre of hope. One man even starts taking bets on whether anything bites. He loses money, happily. You stay by the water longer than you mean to. The ice glistens. It no longer looks like armour, more like glass, or a memory. Something that was once hard and now lets go. As dusk creeps in, the clouds part for just a moment. You see the sun. Not a hint, not a trick of light. The actual golden burning sun. It's not high, it's not hot, but it's there. And in that moment the entire village seems to pause. No one speaks, no one moves. You all just look. And in that silence there's something holy. Not the kind with altars or incense or whispered prayers, but the kind born from enduring. The kind that says, we didn't just survive, we remembered how to live. Later by your fire you remove your second pair of socks and laugh. Not because your feet are warm, but because they might be soon. And that's enough. You open the shutters before the sun is even up. Not because it's warm yet, it isn't. But because you want to see. You want to check if the sky has softened overnight. If the edges of the rooftops have begun to lose their icy hats. If the thaw has kept its promise. It has. Your breath still fogs the glass, but only faintly. Outside, the snow has pulled back from the door frames and fences, like a tide returning to sea. Patches of dirt peek through. A wagon rut glistens with brown water. The icicles that once hung like teeth from every roof are gone, replaced by slow drips that patter steadily onto stones. You pour water from your melted stockpile into a tin basin. It's still cold, but it doesn't bite anymore. You wash your face and actually enjoy it. That's new. And for the first time in weeks, your thoughts turn to the future. Not just the next bowl of soup or the next armful of wood, but what comes after. What happens when the river flows freely? When carts roll again? When trade returns? When seed can touch soil? That afternoon, the village holds its first real meeting since the frost began. No formal hall, no benches, just a circle of people wrapped in coats and cloaks standing beneath the bell tower. The bell doesn't ring, it hasn't in months, but everyone comes anyway. You join them. You stand shoulder to shoulder with neighbours, most of whom you've only seen hunched and silent these past weeks. Now they're standing straighter. Some are smiling. One man jokes that if anyone talks about ice wine again, he'll scream. Everyone laughs. Even the elder, who hasn't spoken since January, lets out a quiet wheeze that might be a chuckle. The meeting isn't long. There's talk of supplies, who has what left, what needs replacing. There's debate over the bridge, which was damaged when the river swelled beneath the ice last week. One woman suggests a planting festival, once the frost is truly gone. It feels impossible, and yet it doesn't. You volunteer to help mend the storage shed. The roof gave in halfway through the coldest week, and no one's touched it since. But now, people are ready. You grab a hammer, some rope, and a handful of nails. You don't have much strength left, but you lend it anyway. Someone passes around a bucket of weak tea. It's hot. It tastes like ashes and hope. By dusk, your arms ache. Your cheeks are wind-chapped. Your coat is damp, and you feel more alive than you have in months. As the meeting breaks up, someone presses a boiled root into your hand. You don't know who. You just eat it right there, standing by the fire pit where no fire burns yet. It's sweet, earthy, real. Tomorrow you'll repair the fence, or help patch a roof, or maybe dig out the road to the mill. Whatever the task, you'll show up. Because the frost may not be fully gone, but neither are you. That night, you sleep with the window cracked, just a sliver, enough to hear the world breathe, and it does. You lie there under fewer blankets than before, listening to the drip, drip, drip of melting ice from the eaves, a gentle rhythm, like a lullaby tapped out on stone. The wind sighs through the shutters, softer than it used to be. Not that sharp, slicing gust from January, but something rounder, almost curious, like it's feeling its way back into the village. In the quiet, you think about what's been lost. You don't dwell, not too much, but you remember. The silent mornings, the bread lines, the way people stopped speaking except with their eyes, the empty market stalls, the sour smell of boiled straw masquerading as broth, the fear of opening the door and finding everything buried under white. You survived it. And now you're starting to remember what it's like to live again. The next morning the blacksmith starts his forge. You hear it before you see it. The familiar whoosh of bellows, the sharp strike of metal. It echoes off the stone walls like a heartbeat. He's not making swords or horseshoes yet, just hinges, nails, hooks. But it's enough to draw a crowd. People gather around the warm glow like moths. The smell of coal and sweat is suddenly comforting. Across the square, the baker tries to fire her oven again. Smoke rises, stutters and catches. She claps when it doesn't die. You notice her apron is cleaner than usual. Someone's drawn another chalk sun on the stones near the well. This one has a smile. You help a neighbour lift a broken beam. It takes 3 tries and a scraped knee, but it stays up. You nod to each other, out of breath, hands filthy, and share the kind of grin that says, "We're not done yet." In the afternoon, a boy, maybe 14, sets up a makeshift stall with nothing but pebbles and twigs arranged like pastries. No one buys them, but several people stop, look, and pretend to consider it. You slip him a coin anyway. He bows like a prince. That evening, as the sky bruises pink and gold, someone sets a stool in the middle of the square and begins to sing. A woman with a voice like weathered silk, not loud, not even clear, but brave. One song, then another. You watch as heads turn, eyes brighten, feet tap gently in the thawed mud. A man lifts his daughter to his shoulders to see. When she finishes, no one claps. They just breathe, deeply, freely, for the first time in a long while. You linger after dark, standing where the last bit of snow clings in the shadows. You touch it once, lightly, then turn toward home. Behind you, the square hums with life. Ahead, your window glows, and in your chest, something stirs. Not just survival, something warmer, something like joy. You wake before dawn, not from cold, not from hunger, but from a strange, quiet energy. Something in your body knows. You rise, pull on your boots, and step out into the grey-blue stillness of morning. The village is hushed, but not in that heavy, fearful way it was weeks ago. Now it feels like a breath held, not out of dread, but anticipation. The frost is still there, but it's shy now, retreating. It clings in small patches along the shaded walls, in the curls of drain pipes, under window ledges, but it no longer owns the ground. The smell hits you first. Not wood smoke, not mouldy grain. Earth. Real, rich earth. The smell of roots and worms and dirt waking up. You walk past the message wall. It's covered in scribbles now. No longer ration tallies or grim trade requests, but plans. Mill resumes Tuesday. Sheep shearing starts soon. Dance after planting. You almost don't notice you're smiling. At the bend in the road, the mud is thick and joyful. It splashes up your legs with each step. The chickens are louder today. A goat bleats somewhere behind a half-mended fence. Life is returning, not just surviving. You stop at the riverbank and blink. It's open, not just cracked, not just sluggish, but open. The ice is gone, all of it. In its place, a ribbon of rushing, jubilant water carving its way through the land like it's making up for lost time. You step closer and crouch by the edge. The current is fast, glittering. A leaf skims across the surface, twirling like it's dancing. And then you see something else. Tiny, green, a sprout. Not a stubborn weed clinging to warmth, but a full-fledged shoot, stretching from the thawed soil like it knows exactly what it's doing. You touch it gently. It doesn't flinch. Behind you, the village begins to move. The forge hammers start again. A wheel creaks. A door bangs open. Voices rise. Not just talking, but laughing, shouting, singing. You turn toward the square and see a group gathered around a cart. It's the first delivery from the next town over. Fresh eggs, dry oats, and something that looks like early cabbage. People cheer when they see it. A woman clutches an egg to her chest like it's a jewel. And then someone shouts, "The well is clear!" You follow the crowd. Sure enough, the wooden cover has been lifted, the bucket rope replaced, and the water below shines black and clean. One by one, people draw buckets, not because they're desperate anymore, but because they can. You lean over the edge, smell the cold, mineral tang, and dip your fingers in. It's icy, pure, alive. You bring a palmful to your lips. It tastes like memory and beginning. You don't say anything. Just close your eyes and drink. Later that day, you find yourself sitting beneath a great linden tree near the south road. It's still bare, its limbs reaching like quiet arms toward the soft sky, but the bark is damp with melt, and if you listen, really listen, you can almost hear it, creak with life. You lean your back against it and let the sunlight fall across your face. It's not warm, not yet, but it no longer stings, it lingers. A child, not yours, not anyone's in particular, passes by dragging a stick through the puddles, humming some half-remembered tune. The path she leaves behind curls like a question mark through the thawing mud. A man waves as he pushes a wheelbarrow full of scrapwood down the path. Someone else is sweeping out the front of the tavern, pausing to scold a pair of roosting pigeons. It's all so normal. But normal now feels like a miracle. You think back to the darkest night of the frost, the one where your breath hung in the air so long it felt like your soul might drift out and freeze before morning. When the silence outside was so complete, it felt like the sky had swallowed the world whole. Now you hear boots, hammers, laughter, a fiddle tuning up. You hear life. You make your way to the village garden plot. Still just brown mounds and sleepy furrows. People are gathered, sleeves rolled, planning. Some carry buckets, others rake or mark little rows with string and stakes. You take a hoe, step into a patch near the edge, and press the blade into soil that, just weeks ago, was a coffin of ice. It yields, soft, damp, ready. A woman beside you hums a tune as she works. Another starts telling a story about a goose that learned to knock on doors. No one even questions it. The ridiculousness feels necessary. Someone passes you a sack of seed potatoes. Shriveled, yes, but full of promise. You cut one into chunks with sprouting eyes and place them carefully into the earth one by one. With each handful of soil you feel something settle in your chest. Not just relief, not just recovery, but belonging. Evening comes slower now. The light stretches itself out across rooftops and fences, laying down like a tired cat. People linger longer outside. Someone sets up a stool in the square again, this time for storytelling. You don't need to sit close to hear. The voice carries. It always does when it matters. And as the tale drifts through the village, you look around at the faces in the crowd, lined, weathered, but lit from within. You survived the great frost of 1709, but more than that, you endured it with others, and now, together, you begin again. So now, lie back. Let the last embers of the frost story drift away. The hammers are quiet now. The villagers have gone to sleep. The square is still. The linden tree stretches overhead, leaves still waiting to bloom. But the promise is there. You made it. Through snow that stole your breath. Through silence that rang like a bell. Through mornings when the frost on your blanket felt heavier than your hope. But you made it. And now, in the hush that follows great struggle, there's peace. There's the sound of a single drip from a melting gutter. There's the soft rhythm of wind in thatched roofs. There's the smell of damp soil, waiting patiently. And you, tucked in, safe, breathing deeper. You can almost feel that spring sun, pale and shy, climbing just over the hills. You can picture the green shoot breaking through the last crust of frozen earth. You can taste the first warm loaf from the oven, steam curling upward in quiet thanks. The great frost has passed, and in its place is something gentler. Let your shoulders soften. Let your chest rise and fall without effort. Let your thoughts settle like dust on a windowsill. You're part of a world that remembers, and you're part of one that rebuilds. So rest now, and dream not of the cold, but of the morning that follows it.